Everybody like and subscribe, praise the bell icon. Story number 1.
Late one rainy night, a 7-Eleven store on a quiet, isolated stretch of highway became the setting for an unnerving encounter that still sends chills through those who witnessed it. A young man just finishing his late shift was behind the counter, cleaning up and getting ready to close. The usual late-night crowd had long since dwindled, and he was left alone, listening to the sound of the rain hitting the windows. It was around 2 a.m., the kind of time when even the most mundane things start to feel eerie, and the night seems too quiet for comfort. Suddenly, the bell above the door jingled, and the door creaked open. A tall, disheveled man shuffled in, wearing an oversized hoodie that covered most of his face. He didn't look like someone who would typically shop at this hour. Dirty clothes, eyes red and bloodshot. His movements were slow and staggered, as if he could barely keep himself upright. The employee nodded a quiet greeting, but the man didn't respond. He just stood there, staring at the shelves for what seemed like an eternity. The silence between them grew thick, the only sound the occasional hum of the refrigerator. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, the man asked, "Do you know where they are?" Confused, the young man leaned forward. "Where? What are?" The stranger's eyes flickered toward him, and for a moment it felt like time froze. His expression wasn't angry, but there was something unsettling about the way he spoke. "The people? The ones who disappeared?" he said. Before the young man could reply, the man turned sharply and began walking toward the back of the store, toward the storage room. The employee's gut twisted. Something about the way the man moved felt off, like he wasn't really all there. It was as if he didn't belong in this world, and maybe that's what made him feel so wrong. Feeling a sudden surge of dread, the employee followed cautiously, calling out, "Hey, you can't go back there." But the man didn't answer. He just kept walking toward the back, disappearing behind the aisle. As the employee approached the storage room, he felt a strange coldness in the air, like someone had opened a freezer door nearby. His footsteps slowed, but the noise of the man's was louder, almost like the sound of dragging feet on tile. When he rounded the corner, the sight before him nearly made him freeze in place. The back door to the storage room was wide open. The lights flickered in the hallway leading into the dark, windowless space. But there was something else, something worse. The man was standing still in the middle of the storage room, staring at the dark corner of the room, as if waiting for something. Without a word, he turned around slowly, his face now fully visible. His eyes were hollow, sunken into his face like he hadn't slept in years. His lips were cracked, and his breath came out in ragged gasps. "Are you coming?" he asked, his voice cold and unfeeling. At that moment, the young man heard the unmistakable sound of movement from within the storage room. Footsteps, but not the sound of the stranger. No, these were lighter, faster, and somehow more than one set. In sheer panic, the employee backed away, but his body froze when he felt a heavy presence behind him. The air around him grew thick and suffocating, and when he turned around, the door to the 7-Eleven slammed shut with a force that rattled the windows. The man was gone. The employee bolted to the front of the store and locked the door. He didn't know what he had just witnessed, but his mind raced with a terrible realization. That wasn't just some random late-night customer. Something more sinister had passed through that door, something connected to the history of this store. The police were never able to find the man, nor did they uncover anything unusual about the store's security footage. It was as if he had never been there at all. But the employee, who never returned to the 7-Eleven after that night, swore that the next morning, the corner of the storage room smelled faintly of decay. No one knows what the stranger was searching for, or what he might have found in that dark corner of the storage room. But one thing was certain, the store was never quite the same after that night, and neither was the young man who had dared to face whatever it was that had come out of the shadows.
Story number 2.
It was around 3 a.m. when the lone cashier at a small 24-hour 7-Eleven on the edge of town noticed something strange. It had been an uneventful night, just the usual late-night customers, the hum of the lights, and the faint sound of the cold drink cooler's compressor. But when the bell above the door jingled at the stroke of 3, it sounded louder than usual, too loud. the kind of noise that makes your skin crawl. A man entered the store, dressed in what appeared to be an old military jacket, frayed at the edges. His hair was long and unkempt, his face covered in a thick, tangled beard. His eyes were strange, cold, almost glassy, and he walked with an odd, stiff gait, as if something was forcing him to move like that. He made his way slowly through the aisles, his eyes darting between the shelves, but never focusing on anything for too long. The cashier tried to shake off the unease crawling up his spine, telling himself it was just another weirdo in the middle of the night. Still, there was something about the man's presence that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. As the man reached the counter, he placed a pack of gum on the counter. The cashier greeted him, but the man didn't answer. He just stared at the gum, his fingers twitching as he ran them along the edge of the packet, almost as if he were trying to make contact with it in a way that didn't feel quite right. "Anything else?" the cashier asked, trying to maintain a calm demeanor. The man's head jerked up, and for a brief moment, their eyes met. The cashier froze. There was something behind those eyes, something far too deep, far too old. The man didn't say anything at first, then muttered under his breath, "I need to find the others." The cashier blinked, unsure of what he meant. "The others?" "The ones who disappeared," the man whispered, voice hoarse. "They're still here, aren't they?" The words hit the air like a cold draft, and the temperature in the store seemed to drop a few degrees. The cashier's stomach twisted, but before he could respond, the man turned and walked back toward the door. But just as the man reached the door, the lights in the store flickered. The bell above the door jingled again, though the man hadn't opened it. The cashier looked up, heart hammering in his chest, to see the man standing in front of the door. His mouth was open now, but no sound came out, just an unsettling, gaping expression as if he was trying to scream but couldn't. Then, as quickly as it started, it stopped. The man straightened up and with a strange, mechanical movement, left the store without a word. The door swung closed behind him, but the cashier felt as though something was still lingering in the air. Minutes passed, and the man never came back, but something was wrong. The cashier checked the security cameras, hoping to make sense of it, but as the footage rewound to show the man's entrance, he froze. There was no man. Not in the footage, just an empty doorway. But when the bell rang, he'd clearly heard the sound of someone entering. There were no footprints on the floor, and no sound of footsteps had been recorded. The only trace of the man was the strange, lingering feeling of dread that filled the room. A week later, the cashier found out the story of that particular 7-Eleven. The building had been built on land where decades ago several soldiers had disappeared under mysterious circumstances, their bodies never found. People claimed that their spirits lingered, trapped between worlds, always searching for answers, always trying to communicate. The cashier, still haunted by the man's words, "I need to find the others," quit his job the next day. But no matter where he went, he couldn't escape the feeling that the man had never truly left the store, and that the others were still out there, waiting. The story didn't end there. The following year, the 7-Eleven closed, its business dwindling. People who passed by the building late at night claimed they saw shadows moving behind the windows, shadows of men in old military jackets, never quite visible, always just out of reach. And sometimes, on particularly cold nights, the bell above the door would ring, though no one was there. The ghosts of the missing soldiers, some said, were still trying to find their way home.
Story number 3.
It was the kind of night that seemed to drag on forever, the kind where time feels like it's stuck, and every creak or groan from the building makes your skin tingle. A 7-Eleven in a quiet suburban neighborhood had only one employee working that night, an exhausted young woman named Mia. The clock on the wall blinked 11:52 p.m. She was nearing the end of her shift, the only sounds the hum of the fluorescent lights and the occasional flicker of the security monitor. Mia glanced around the store. It was empty, save for the flickering neon sign outside casting eerie shadows through the window. She checked the time again and sighed. She'd been working there for months, and the strange events had started a few weeks ago. At first, she thought it was just her mind playing tricks, but it had been happening more frequently. Those strange noises, the flickering lights, and that feeling of being watched. At exactly 12:03 a.m., a man walked into the store. He was tall, wearing a dark trench coat, and his face was shadowed beneath a wide-brimmed hat. His eyes, when they briefly met hers, seemed almost hollow, devoid of warmth. The man didn't say anything as he shuffled toward the back of the store, a slow, deliberate pace. He didn't even glance at the shelves, his focus fixed on something Mia couldn't see. Mia watched him warily as he disappeared into the aisles. She'd been working late nights for a while, but there was something unsettling about this man. Something wrong. Her stomach twisted, a warning she couldn't ignore. A few minutes passed, and Mia decided to check on him, make sure everything was okay. As she walked down the aisle, she noticed the man was standing at the back of the store, looking at a corner where the shelves met the wall. He wasn't picking anything up, wasn't looking for snacks or drinks, he just stood there. "Can I help you?" Mia called out, her voice shaky but trying to sound confident. The man didn't respond. He just stood there, motionless, like he hadn't heard her. Mia hesitated. The silence was suffocating. She took another step forward, and this time his head jerked toward her, his eyes wide and unnerving. "You can see me?" he asked, like his voice cold and rasping. Mia felt a shiver run down her spine. Yes, of course. Is everything okay? Can I help you find something?" He blinked, slowly, his gaze unfocused, as if trying to piece together where he was. "I'm looking for someone," he said. "Have you seen her?" Mia frowned. "Who are you looking for?" The man didn't answer right away. He just stood there, staring past her, his head tilted as if listening to something distant. The lights above flickered again, like casting eerie shadows on the walls. "She's here," the man said suddenly, his voice barely a whisper. "She's still here." Before Mia could respond, he turned around and walked toward the back of the store, toward the employee-only area. Mia's heart pounded in her chest. She tried to call out, but her voice caught in her throat. She followed him cautiously, but when she turned the corner, he was gone. The door to the back storage room was ajar, and Mia felt a strange pull to investigate. As she stepped inside, she immediately felt a drop in temperature. The air felt heavier, colder. Her breath came out in visible puffs, even though the store had been warm just moments before. The lights in the storage room flickered once more, and in the dim light, Mia saw it. On the floor just beneath the shelves was a small, faded photograph. It showed a group of people, several of them in 7-Eleven uniforms. In the center, a young woman smiled for the camera. Mia didn't recognize her, but there was something familiar about the photo. Her heart raced as she picked it up. Her hands shook as she turned the photograph over. The back of the photo was scribbled with a name, Lena. And beneath it, there was another message, written in red ink. She never left. Mia's blood ran cold. Her breath caught in her throat. The store had been around for years, but she'd never heard of anyone named Lena working there. Who was she? Why was her photo here in the storage room hidden away? And what did the message mean? The lights flickered again, this time more violently. The temperature in the room dropped even further. Mia quickly turned, but the man was standing there again, blocking the door. His eyes were wide, panicked, as though he had seen something, someone that terrified him. "She's here," he whispered, his voice shaking. "She won't let me leave. She won't let anyone leave." Mia froze, her blood turning to ice. As she glanced past him, she saw something move in the corner of her eye. A shadow. No, a figure, faint, translucent, but unmistakable. The figure of a woman standing just behind the man. Mia's stomach churned. Without thinking, she bolted from the room, not daring to look back. She ran straight to the front door, but as she reached for the handle, it wouldn't budge. The door was locked. She was trapped. The figure was now standing at the end of the aisle, slowly moving toward her, its pale face twisted in a look of despair. The man was gone. The store was silent, save for the sound of her own rapid breathing. And then the voice, the same rasping voice from before, whispered in her ear, "You can see me now, can't you? You can see me. I never left." Mia finally found the strength to push open the door, bursting into the night air. But as she looked back, the lights inside flickered once more, and for just a moment she swore she saw the woman's face, pressing up against the glass, staring out at her. The store closed down a few months later, its business faltering. No one ever spoke of Lena, but every now and then, A local would pass by the darkened 7-Eleven at night and swear they saw something moving inside, something that didn't belong. And sometimes late at night, you could still hear the bell above the door jingle, even when no one was there.
Story number 4.
It was just after midnight when the power flickered out in the small 7-Eleven store. Jessie, a young woman working the graveyard shift, groaned as the sudden darkness enveloped the store. She looked up at the clock above the counter, 12:03 a.m. It was a typical slow night. Only a few customers had come in, and most had left quickly, leaving her to clean and restock in peace. But now, standing in total darkness, Jessie felt something in the air shift. It wasn't just the power outage, it was the stillness. The silence was unnerving, more oppressive than usual. She grabbed the flashlight from beneath the counter, its beam cutting through the blackness. She started toward the back of the store to check the fuse box, but something stopped her halfway there. She couldn't quite explain why, but she felt watched. Jessie's pulse quickened, and she turned toward the front door. It was still locked, just as it had been all night. But there, in the corner of the glass window beside the door, was a shadow. A figure, tall and hunched, standing still as if waiting. The hair on the back of her neck stood up. Jessie's breath hitched. Who would be out there at this hour, just standing there? She set the flashlight on the counter, then approached the door cautiously. Her heart thudded in her chest as she peeked through the glass. The figure was still there, but it wasn't a man, or at least it didn't look like one. The shape was too distorted, too unnatural, like it was shifting. Jessie stepped back, her hand trembling as she reached for the phone behind the counter. She dialed the store's security number, her voice low and panicked. "Hello? There's someone outside. I think they're trying to get in. I need help." There was no response, just a long, static-filled silence. Then suddenly, the phone line cut off. Jessie tried again, but it was dead. Her stomach churned. She grabbed her flashlight and bolted for the back storage room, hoping to find a way out through the rear door. But as she turned the corner to the hallway, she froze. The figure, now clear, was standing right behind the storage room door, pressed against the glass. The figure was wrong. Its face was contorted into an unnatural, twisted grin, eyes hollow and black as tar, its body bent in ways that no human should be able to, elongated limbs stretched at odd angles, fingers twitching like claws. But the worst part? It was smiling directly at her. In the flash of the flashlight's beam, the figure shifted, its head jerking forward like a predator about to pounce. A cold, menacing voice from behind the door, low and guttural. "Let me in." Jessie gasped, stumbling backward in terror. Her breath came in ragged gasps, her mind racing. She couldn't think, couldn't move. She was paralyzed. Then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the figure vanished. The lights in the store blinked back to life. Jessie's heart hammered in her chest as the familiar hum of the lights returned, the normalcy of it almost more terrifying than the darkness. The door was locked. The store was still secure, but her body felt like it was moving on its own as she rushed toward the exit. She burst outside, running into the night air, eyes scanning the parking lot. There was no one there. The street was empty, silent, shaking. Jessie called her manager, her voice trembling as she tried to explain what had happened. But when the manager answered, the voice on the other end wasn't what she expected. "Jessie," the voice said, eerily calm, "that store has been closed for 2 weeks. What are you talking about?" Jessie froze. "What do you mean? I'm standing in front of the store right now. I'm working the night shift." There was a long pause on the other end, and then the voice, barely a whisper, replied, "No one works there anymore. The place was abandoned after what happened last month. You're not supposed to be there." Her stomach twisted as the weight of the words hit her. "What happened last month?" The voice sighed as though it had been waiting for this moment. "A girl was working the night shift, just like you. She was alone in the store when it happened, when he came. We never found her body." Jessie dropped the phone in horror, staring back at the 7-Eleven. The streetlights cast long, twisted shadows on the sidewalk. But it wasn't the emptiness that frightened her now. It was the sudden realization that there was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide from whatever had been waiting inside the store. In the distance, just before the front door, she saw the faintest figure, its grin wide and malicious. and its eyes, black as night, locked with hers. The store had been closed for weeks, but something inside it was still waiting, and it wanted her.